I was 13 when the world I knew ended, and for a long time after that, I kept thinking it would restart, like a clock you bump by accident, then tap again to make it tick. My name is David. Before the war in Waj, my life was small in the way a child's life is allowed to be small. The city smelled like damp brick after rain, like coal smoke in winter, like fresh yeast when the bakery on our street opened its shutters. My mother, Mama, kept our apartment clean the way people do when they don't have much else they can control. My father, Tata, worked long hours, and when he came home, he brought it outdoors with him. Cold on his coat, dust in his cuffs, the faint oil smell of machinery. My little sister Hania was 6, and her hair never stayed tied for more than a few minutes. She laughed with her whole body, like she had to prove she was alive. On Fridays, our home changed. Mama's hands moved differently, steadier, almost gentle with the objects. The tablecloth came out, the candle holders, the bread covered with a cloth like something that deserved privacy. I remember the moment just before sundown, when the light seemed to hesitate in the windows and Mama would strike the match. The flame would catch, and for a heartbeat I'd think, there it is. We're safe. We've drawn a circle of light, and it will hold. In those years, I didn't understand how thin circles can be. In September 1939, Germany invaded Poland. We heard it first as rumor, then as a sound. Airplanes, far off, like a storm that refused to arrive properly and instead hovered above the city. Adults spoke in sharp fragments. Warsaw, bombed. The army, retreating. The Germans, here. When German soldiers came into Łódź, it didn't feel like a story with a beginning. It felt like the street was suddenly not ours. Boots, commands, new signs. The language itself changed the shape of the air. I watched Tata's face when he read the notices nailed to poles. His eyes flicked back and forth quickly, as if speed could make the words less real. Soon there were rules for us. Jews. That was the word the notices used. Juden, as if we were a category of cargo. We were ordered to wear identifying marks, white armbands with a blue Star of David, and later the yellow star sewn to our clothing in many places. We were told where we could walk, where we could not. Businesses were seized, schools shut for us. People who had been neighbors began to look past us, not always from hatred, sometimes from fear, which can still injure you just as badly. Hunger began, like a new annoyance, then became a constant companion that moved in with us and lay down in every corner. In early 1940, the Germans created the Łódź Ghetto, one of the first large ghettos in occupied Poland. They sealed it with fences and guards and gates, trapping hundreds of thousands of Jews inside a cramped section of the city. We were told it was temporary. Everything was temporary, people said. Just until the war ends. Just until they need workers. Just until... We packed what we could carry. Mama wrapped photographs in cloth as if they were fragile dishes. Tata took a small prayer book. Hania carried a doll missing one eye, and she pressed it against her chest so tightly her knuckles went pale. When the gate clanged shut behind us, I felt something inside me clamp down too. I didn't have the words for it then, but I know now it was the first time I felt what would become my longest emotion. Not knowing what happens next and being forced to continue anyway. Inside the ghetto, life became a lesson in subtraction. The rooms grew crowded with other families. Our ration cards promised food that didn't arrive, or arrived in amounts that felt like a cruel joke. The bread tasted of sawdust and hope. Soup was often hot water with a memory of vegetables. People traded, bargained, stole, shared. Every moral rule you'd been taught became a question you had to answer with an empty stomach. Tata tried to keep us together. That became his job as much as any work assignment. In the ghetto, the Germans forced Jews into labor. Workshops, factories, sewing uniforms, repairing equipment. The ghetto's administrators, under German control, organized labor because the occupiers believed the ghetto could be useful as a pool of cheap workers. People said, work will save us. You heard it like a prayer. I believed it for a while. I wanted to. Mama did what mothers do in disaster. She became a wall between her children and the full truth. When she spoke about the future, she spoke as if we would be in it. When she sliced a piece of bread, she made sure it looked equal, even when it wasn't, because she would push her own portion away and say, "I'm not hungry," with the stubbornness of love. Winter in the ghetto was not a season. It was an occupation. The cold moved into our bones. Coal was scarce. People burned furniture, then books, then anything that could be burned, and still the rooms stayed cruel. Sometimes I woke up and didn't know if my tears were from sadness or from the cold hurting my face. Typhus spread. People spoke of it in whispers, as if the disease could hear its name. Funerals became quick, small, exhausted gatherings because there was always another death coming up behind the first. And still, we tried to live. Hania would sing songs she remembered from before, and when her voice wavered, Mama would hum along, quietly, like she was holding Hania up with sound. Tata would tell me stories from his childhood, not because the stories mattered, but because the act of telling them made a bridge to a world where we were not trapped behind fences. Then came the deportations. In the ghetto, news traveled like breath, passed mouth to ear to mouth. People said that Jews were being resettled. That word, resettled, became a knife. It meant trains. It meant families disappearing. In Łódź, many deportations began in late 1941 and intensified in 1942. People were taken to a place called Chełmno, Kulmów, an extermination site where victims were murdered. We didn't know the mechanism then, not in clear detail, but we knew enough. Those who went did not come back. One day, a notice went up. Certain categories to report: children, the elderly, the sick, those without work permits. There were selections, there were roundups, there were moments where the ghetto seemed to hold its breath, and then exhale, screams. Tata's hands shook when he looked at Hania. Mama held Hania closer, as if she could fuse their bodies and become inseparable. In September 1942, in the Łódź ghetto, there was a period remembered for the demand to hand over children and the elderly. One of the most shattering episodes in ghetto life. I did not understand how a human mouth could make such demands and still call itself human. We hid. We were not clever heroes. We were terrified people. Tata found a crawl space in a building where he worked. We squeezed in with other families, bodies pressed into each other, the air thick and stale. Hania whimpered at first, then Mama put her hand over Hania's mouth, not to silence her forever, but to keep her alive. I remember Mama's eyes. Huge, wet, fierce. I remember the way Hania's small fingers clutched Mama's wrist, not resisting but pleading. Outside, boots on stairs. Voa ices, a door slammed. Someone cried out, "Please!" And another voice, hard, practiced, answered with something that was not an answer. Hours passed. Or minutes. Time became something I could not measure. My stomach hurt from holding itself tight. My throat felt raw from not speaking. This